Early 2026, hundreds of thousands of unsold cars, some practically brand new, sit untouched while dealers slash sticker prices by up to 40% just to survive. It is a market turned so sharp, it is rewriting the rules overnight. But how did the roaring sales and easy credit promises of just a few years ago create an overflow so severe that vehicles are now being dumped for pennies? The real story starts before the collapse. What you learn next could save you thousands. Dealerships across the country are caught in a numbers game they cannot win. On the ground, the evidence piles up. Rows of unsold vehicles stretch beyond the showroom, filling every inch of paved real estate. National inventory levels have hit 3 million new cars, an 89-day supply, putting dealer lots at record highs not seen since before the pandemic. Used inventory sits at 2.4 million units, a 51-day supply, up nearly a quarter from last year. Some lots have gone from moving cars in weeks to watching them sit for months. Average days on lot are now pushing 127, and some units are creeping toward 300 days without a buyer. Sticker prices are no longer set in stone. Incentives have soared to 3-year highs, with discounts and rebates piling up as dealers scramble to clear out aging 2024 and 2025 models. It is not uncommon to find markdowns of $5,000, $10,000, or even more off the original price, especially on full-size trucks and SUVs. Lease deals, once reserved for leftovers, now appear on vehicles that just rolled off the transporter. 0% financing for 84 months has become a headline tactic, and loss leader lease rates are back on the table. Yet the cars keep stacking up, and the math only gets worse with each passing day. Every unsold vehicle drags down the bottom line. Floor plan interest, the daily cost of borrowing to keep inventory on hand, eats away at profits. For a $35,000 car, that is $8 to $12 a day in interest alone. By the 120th day, a single unit racks up $1,300 in interest, not counting overhead. Multiply that by dozens or hundreds of vehicles, and even the largest franchises feel the pressure. Margins evaporate, forcing dealers to choose between taking a loss now or risking even deeper cuts later. Overflow is not just a figure of speech. In high-density markets, lots designed for 100 cars now squeeze in 150 or more. Some dealers have rented extra space at remote lots or even shuttered malls to store the overflow. There are reports of vehicles parked bumper to bumper in every corner, with some franchises using satellite locations just to avoid violating city codes. The visual is unmistakable. America's car market is awash in unsold inventory, and the only way out is to slash prices and hope buyers return. Incentives and markdowns have become the new normal. What was once a seller's market has flipped overnight. Sticker shock now means something very different. Shoppers stare at price tags that seem to drop by the week, while dealers brace for the next round of carrying costs. The question hangs in the air. How did the industry go from record sales to this glut of cars with nowhere to go? In 2020, the world changed almost overnight. As COVID-19 lockdowns swept across the US, demand for personal vehicles exploded. Suddenly, every car on a dealer's lot was spoken for, often before it even arrived. Manufacturers could not build fast enough. Assembly lines ran overtime, sometimes 7 days a week, just to keep up with orders pouring in from every corner of the country. Government stimulus checks landed in millions of bank accounts, and buyers rushed to spend. At the same time, automakers and lenders unleashed a wave of advertising for 0% financing and ultra-long loan terms. Commercials promised 0% APR for up to 84 months, 7 years of payments with almost no interest. For many, the math was too good to pass up. With rock-bottom rates and easy approvals, even buyers with shaky credit found themselves driving away in brand-new vehicles. Subprime approvals soared to record highs, and the average loan amount ballooned as buyers stretched for bigger, more expensive models. But there was a catch. The global supply chain buckled under the strain. Microchip shortages and shipping delays meant that every new vehicle was already sold the moment it left the factory. Dealers took deposits on cars that would not arrive for months. Some buyers paid thousands over sticker price just to secure a spot in line. By late 2021, the phrase pre-sold became standard in the industry. For a brief moment, the market was so tight that used cars sometimes sold for more than new ones. Automakers took these signals as a green light. Production forecasts for 2022 and beyond rose sharply, with some manufacturers planning to expand capacity by as much as 25%. The expectation was simple. If demand could survive a pandemic, it would only keep growing. Plants in Michigan, Kentucky, and Texas retooled for higher output, and suppliers ramped up to match. The industry's confidence was absolute. No one wanted to be caught short when the next wave of buyers arrived. Archival advertisements from the era tell the story. Splashy banners promised no payments for 90 days, cash back on every model, and guaranteed approval. The airwaves were saturated with offers, each one more aggressive than the last. In reality, the market was running on borrowed time. The combination of stimulus, cheap credit, and supply shortages created a perfect storm, a surge that looked unstoppable but was built on fragile ground. The stage was set for what would become one of the most dramatic reversals in automotive history. Auto finance offices across the country became the busiest rooms in the dealership. By late 2020, lenders had rolled out loan terms that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years earlier. The 84-month car loan, 7 years of payments, moved from a rare exception to a mainstream offer. For buyers, it felt like a golden ticket. Monthly payments dropped to levels that fit almost any budget, even as the price of the average new vehicle crept above $40,000. Teaser rates, sometimes as low as 1.9% or even 0% for qualified buyers, appeared in bold print on every sales ad and TV spot. The promise was simple: drive more car for less money down. Inside the finance office, approval rates soared. Lenders, hungry for market share, relaxed their standards. Subprime borrowers, who once struggled to get approved, suddenly found doors wide open. In 2021, subprime approvals reached record highs, with some lenders approving buyers for vehicles priced 40% above what traditional guidelines would have allowed. The old rules, 20% down, 60 months maximum, strict debt-to-income ratios, faded into the background. Instead, the focus shifted to moving metal, one signature at a time. For many dealerships, the process became almost automatic. A finance manager might pull a credit report, see a score in the mid-600s, and still walk out with a stamped approval for a $45,000 SUV. The math worked on paper, with a low introductory APR that made the monthly payment look manageable, even for buyers with modest incomes. Some buyers walked in expecting a used compact and drove off in a brand new truck or luxury crossover, convinced by the numbers on the screen. Banks and captive finance arms were not just competing for prime borrowers. They targeted every segment, pushing deeper into subprime and near-prime territory. The average new car loan amount ballooned, jumping from $34,000 in 2019 to over $40,000 by 2022. At the same time, average loan terms stretched past 72 months for the first time on record. The industry's appetite for risk grew with every passing quarter. In the background, auto loan debt in the U.S. quietly surpassed $1.65 trillion, overtaking student debt for the first time. By 2022, nearly 1 in 4 new car loans carried a term of 84 months. The average new car payment hit $750 a month, while used car payments climbed past $525. For many buyers, the only way to afford a new vehicle was to stretch the loan as far as possible and hope rates stayed low. A finance manager in suburban Ohio described the change this way: "We used to spend half our day explaining why we couldn't approve someone. Now, the banks just say, just yes. If the customer's breathing and has a job, we can get them into something, usually something bigger than they came in for." But behind every approval, risk quietly accumulated. Teaser rates were set to adjust after a few years. Many buyers had little or no down payment, leaving them vulnerable if values dropped. As the cost of vehicles rose, so did the size of the average loan. By 2022, the average loan-to-value ratio pushed past 110% for subprime deals, meaning buyers owed far more than the car was worth the moment they drove off the lot. For a time, it seemed like the good times would never end. Buyers drove off in new cars, lenders booked record profits, and dealerships celebrated month after month of sales records. But the foundation was built on borrowed money and borrowed time. When interest rates started to climb and the market cooled, the true cost of easy credit would come due. Factories across the country didn't just keep pace with demand, they raced ahead. By late 2022, major automakers had expanded production capacity by as much as 25%, betting that the buying frenzy seen during the pandemic would last for years. Assembly lines in Michigan, Kentucky, and Texas ran around the clock, churning out vehicles. Suppliers ramped up to match, shipping parts in bulk to feed the machine. The logic was simple. If every car built in 2021 was pre-sold, why not build even more? But the math behind this optimism started to unravel. Retail sales, which had soared during the stimulus boom, fell approximately 15% from the first quarter of 2024 to the first quarter of 2025. Factory shipments dropped 18% over the same period, but the real kicker was inventory. Instead of shrinking with softer demand, dealer lots ballooned. Inventory levels climbed 35%, leaving showrooms and overflow lots packed with unsold vehicles. Every extra car sitting on the lot carried a daily cost, and the numbers added up fast. Dealerships don't own their inventory outright. Most rely on floor plan financing, short-term loans that cover the cost of each vehicle on the lot. At interest rates from 2025 to 2026, a $35,000 car racks up between $8 and $12 a day in interest alone. After 120 days, that's $1,300 in interest per vehicle, not including insurance, maintenance, or other overhead. On a lot with 100 unsold cars, daily interest charges run $1,000 or more, draining cash flow even before a single sale is made. Spreadsheet projections from dealer groups show the impact. At 30 days, margins are healthy. At 60 days, profits are halved. By 90 days, margins are gone. At 120 days, every car sold is a loss. Margins evaporate as carrying costs mount. This isn't just a paper problem. When inventory sits too long, lenders step in. Some floor plan agreements include covenants that trigger at 75 or 90 days. If a dealer can't sell the car or pay down the loan, the lender can force a sale, repossess the vehicle, or demand immediate repayment. In extreme cases, lenders move units to auction themselves, accepting whatever price the market will bear. Dealers caught in this cycle face a grim choice: slash prices now and take a loss, or hold out and risk even deeper losses as carrying costs mount. The physical surplus is impossible to ignore. A single franchise may have hundreds of vehicles aging past 90 days, each one a ticking expense. Larger groups try to shuffle inventory between locations, but the problem is everywhere. The numbers on the spreadsheet don't lie. Every extra day means more money lost. Dealers who once aimed for 8 to 10% gross margins now find themselves lucky to break even. Some are forced to sell at a loss just to free up capital and avoid breaching loan covenants. The result is a market where markdowns aren't a strategy, they are a necessity. Incentives, rebates, and discounts pile up, but even these can't keep pace with the cost spiral. The only real safety valve is the wholesale auction, where vehicles are liquidated for whatever they can fetch. As more dealers reach their breaking point, the flood of cars to auction grows, setting the stage for the next phase of the crisis. Interest rates began their climb in early 2022, but it was not until the spring of 2025 that the real pain hit home for borrowers. The Federal Reserve rate hikes pushed the average new car loan annual percentage rate past 9%. For anyone who bought during the pandemic's low-rate heyday, the jump in monthly payments was staggering, sometimes $200 or $300 more each month, especially for those with adjustable rate loans, resetting 4 or 5 percentage points higher almost overnight. Experian tracked auto loan delinquencies climbing to nearly 7%, the highest in over a decade. On quiet suburban streets, the impact is measured in empty driveways and early morning headlights. Tow trucks roll out before sunrise, collecting vehicles from families who simply cannot keep up with payments that outpace their paychecks. In 2025 alone, more than 2 million cars were repossessed, a 35% increase from the previous year, and projections call for as many as 3 million repossessions before the year ends. For many, the math stopped working. Negative equity left owners owing thousands more than their cars were worth, making it impossible to refinance or trade in. A repo driver in Atlanta describes the new reality. We used to pick up 1 or 2 cars a night. Now it is 5, 6, sometimes more. People leave the keys in the cup holder because they know we are coming. Lenders, facing mounting losses, have ramped up asset recovery operations. Bulletins warn of intensified efforts, and the industry's quiet army of repo agents is busier than ever. It is not just subprime borrowers feeling the squeeze. Prime customers, lured by teaser rates in 2021, now face payment shocks as their loans adjust. The wave of defaults does not discriminate by credit score. Each repossessed car adds to the overflow at wholesale auctions, flooding a market already saturated with unsold inventory. Dealers, forced to liquidate, accept whatever price the market will bear. The connection is direct. As finance costs explode, so does the pace of repossessions. The auto market's affordability crisis is not just a story of numbers. It is lived out in neighborhoods across America, one empty garage at a time. Auction houses across the country have become the final stop for vehicles that dealers can no longer afford to keep. On any given day, the Mannheim and Odessa lots are packed with row after row of late-model cars, many with barely a few thousand miles on the odometer. The numbers tell the story. Auction volumes jumped 40% over the past year, overwhelming even the largest facilities. What used to be a weekly event has turned into a non-stop operation. Managers now schedule sales around the clock, 7 days a week, just to keep up with the incoming supply. Some locations have resorted to overnight sessions, with cars rolling across the block at 2 in the morning, headlights slicing through the darkness as auctioneers call out bids to a thinning crowd. The mood on the auction floor is frantic. Dealers who once relied on wholesale auctions to fill their lots now find themselves on the other side, desperate to unload inventory at almost any price. Average winning bids have dropped 20 to 25% from their peak, erasing years of steady appreciation. Vehicles that retailed for $38,000 last year now struggle to clear $29,000 at auction, and sellers are lucky if they break even after fees and transport costs. For every car that sells, 2 more arrive, fueling a cycle that shows no signs of slowing. An auction manager in Pennsylvania describes the chaos. "We used to run 3 lanes, maybe 4 on a busy day. Now we are running 6, sometimes 8, and we still cannot move them fast enough. The phones never stop. Dealers are begging us to get their cars in the next sale, but there is just no room. The pressure is everywhere. Lenders offload repossessed vehicles as quickly as possible, accepting whatever the market will bear. Franchise dealers dump aging inventory to avoid breaching floor plan covenants. Independent lots, squeezed by rising interest and shrinking margins, send cars to auction with reserve prices they know will never be met. The result is a wholesale market in free fall, with prices set by whoever is willing to take the biggest loss. Behind the scenes, loopholes in the system allow questionable vehicles to slip through. As volumes surge, inspections grow rushed, and paperwork piles up. Some cars arrive with clean titles that mask a troubled past, setting the stage for the next wave of problems in the used market. For now, the focus is on volume, moving as many cars as possible, as quickly as possible. But with every sale, the gap between retail and wholesale grows wider, and the true cost of the oversupply becomes harder to ignore. Flood-damaged vehicles, once written off by insurers after hurricanes, have found their way back onto the market through a web of title laundering. After the storms of 2023 and 2024, salvage auctions in coastal states filled with vehicles tagged as total losses. Instead of heading to scrapyards, many of these cars traveled hundreds of miles, crossing state lines into jurisdictions with weaker oversight. In those states, damaged titles were wiped clean. The The result is cars with histories of water damage and corrosion reappearing for sale with spotless paperwork. An investigator from the National Insurance Crime Bureau describes the process as a game of hide and seek. VIN mismatches surface at inland auctions, where a pickup truck once branded as a flood loss in Texas is suddenly offered in South Carolina with no record of its past. Moisture trapped under carpets, rust in hidden crevices, and intermittent electrical failures become the only clues for unwary buyers. Many discover these problems months later, long after the paperwork has cleared and the seller has disappeared. The scale is difficult to pin down, but industry analysts warn that significant numbers of flood vehicles are slipping through the cracks. After every major storm, thousands of cars are declared total losses. Yet state databases and federal systems like NMVTIS struggle to keep pace with the volume and the speed of these transfers. The NICB public VIN check tool flags some, but not all, vehicles that should be off the road. Meanwhile, auction houses move inventory in bulk, leaving little time for thorough inspections. At the same time, the digital marketplace has become a minefield. Large platforms, once trusted to connect buyers and sellers, now face criticism for how their algorithms rank listings. A former engineer at a major auto site describes internal pressure to prioritize dealers who pay for premium placement. Identical cars can appear pages apart, with those backed by advertising dollars pushed to the top. Private sellers and smaller dealers struggle to compete, their listings buried unless they pay for visibility credits. This pay-to-play dynamic shapes what buyers see and what they miss. Vehicles with clean titles but hidden histories rise to the front, while honest listings can go unnoticed. Critics argue that these algorithms, designed to maximize revenue, make it harder for shoppers to spot red flags. As a result, the risk of buying a flood-damaged or misrepresented car rises, especially for those searching for bargains in a market flooded with inventory. The crisis is no longer just about numbers or prices, it is about trust, transparency, and the growing gap between what is promised and what is delivered. Factories that once ran around the clock now sit silent for days at a time. In Michigan, Kentucky, and Ohio, the hum of assembly lines has faded as automakers slash production by up to a third. The numbers are stark, more than 15,000 layoffs rippled through regional automotive hubs between late 2024 and mid-2025. For towns built around parts suppliers and assembly plants, the impact lands hard. Cafes that serve the morning shift close their doors. School enrollment drops as families pack up and move in search of work. Property values sag, and the local diner, once packed with workers in coveralls, now sits half empty at lunchtime. For workers like Angela Torres, a seat foam technician in Dayton, the layoff notice came without warning. After 12 years on the line, she found herself staring at a final paycheck and a list of food pantry hours. Her husband, a welder at a nearby stamping plant, saw his hours cut in half. Their mortgage, car payments, and medical bills did not shrink to match. "We did everything right," Angela says. "We worked overtime, saved what we could, but when the factory slows down, everything else does too." The damage is not limited to those who lose their jobs. Dealers now face a different kind of crisis: warranty service delays. With production cuts and supplier shutdowns, parts inventories have dried up. A simple repair, once a 2-day turnaround, can now mean weeks of waiting. Customers drop off vehicles for basic fixes only to be told that a replacement sensor or control module is back-ordered with no delivery date. Service bays fill with cars that cannot be finished, and loaner fleets run dry. Frustration builds as phone lines light up with calls from drivers desperate for updates. Dealers, already squeezed by thin margins and falling sales, struggle to keep up with complaints and warranty claims. In these communities, the fallout from the industry's slowdown is everywhere. A laid-off supplier worker scans job boards in the public library. The local dealer owner, once a pillar of the Chamber of Commerce, fields angry calls from customers who just want their cars back on the road. For families, it is not just about lost paychecks. It is the uncertainty, the sense that a stable future has slipped out of reach. The automotive heartland, once defined by steady work and new cars rolling off the line, now faces a long road back to normal. Timing is everything in a market this volatile. The deepest discounts show up twice a year, from January through March, when tax refund season collides with dealer floor plan deadlines, and again in September and October, as the next model year hits showrooms. Auction data reveals prices can drop 18 to 22% during these windows, compared to summer peaks. For buyers willing to wait, patience pays off. Savvy shoppers do not rely on sticker prices or dealer ads. Instead, they turn to the same data dealers use: Kelley Blue Book, Manheim Market Report, and Black Book wholesale values. These sources expose the real numbers behind the lot. Take a 2024 midsize SUV with a $38,000 manufacturer suggested retail price. At auction, that same vehicle might clear for $26,500. Add $1,500 for transport and reconditioning, and the true retail ceiling lands around $28,000 or $29,000. Arithmetic, not emotion, sets the limit. Negotiation is no longer a guessing game. The most effective buyers follow a four-step sequence. First, they get an independent pre-purchase inspection to document the car's condition. Next, they present a data-backed price ceiling, often using recent auction sales as proof. Then comes a single, firm offer with a 24-hour expiration. Finally, they use silence as leverage. Dealers can out-talk almost any buyer, but they cannot train against patience. Every week a car sits, dealer margins shrink by one more percentage point. By the fourth week, the pressure to sell outweighs the urge to haggle. Not every car loses value at the same pace. Compact sedans and small crossovers hold on to 70 to 80% of their value, driven by fuel efficiency and affordability. Midsize SUVs drop 25 to 30%, but often recover fastest when the market stabilizes. Full-size trucks and luxury models take the hardest hit, with some losing 35 to 45% of their value in a year. High fuel and insurance costs turn these vehicles into financial anchors, making them prime candidates for deep discounts. The real opportunity belongs to buyers who watch the right signals. 3 indicators reveal when the market is about to turn: the NADA inventory to sales ratio, auto loan delinquency rates, and auction clearance percentages. When inventory falls below a 60-day supply, delinquencies drop under 5%, and auction clearance rises above 75%, the worst is likely over. Until then, data and discipline give buyers the upper hand in a market still searching for balance. When all 3 indicators align favorably, wait 3 to 4 weeks before making moves. Today, the auto market stands at a crossroads. Millions of vehicles, billions in loans, and an ecosystem straining under its own weight. As affordability vanishes and negative equity spreads, every buyer's decision shapes tomorrow's reality. The car in your driveway is no longer just transportation. It is a signal of who adapts and who gets left behind. Drop your thoughts below. Who do you think survives the next turn?